I'm your host, Riem Zin Labidin, and you are listening to Tic Tac Podcast.
So, hello everyone. This is Ali Saleh. I am a software engineer at Google. Nice to meet you.
Welcome, Ali, to this show. Before we dive deep into the technical stuff, can you tell us a little about yourself? Where are you from and what are your hobbies?
Yes, I can share some stuff. So, I am originally from Egypt, and 12 years ago, I moved to Germany. I have been living in the same city in Germany since I moved here. So, it's around 12 years. I have been living in the city of Hamburg. What is my hobby? So usually I like to read a lot. I'm trying to read lots of books every year. I also recently started playing paddle with a community in the city of Hamburg. We have been trying to play paddle frequently, so almost every week. UAM is also playing with
Yeah.
us. You are one of the members. And one thing that I also recently started playing again is a Muay Thai. It's some kind of a self-defense game. So it's a little bit violent, but it's also a nice game. This is something that I have been doing lately.
Sounds cool. And to start talking about your journey, when did you first get interested in computers or systems?
So at the time when I was before going to university, I had a cousin who was also working as a software engineer. He at the time he was working at Microsoft Egypt, and in the same time also my sister was studying computer science at the same university that I eventually went to.
Mhm.
So I had introduced to the technical discussions that they were having, and then I get okay, that's something that looks cool. At the time, Microsoft was the biggest company in the world, and there was a lot of talks about okay, Microsoft is going to be split into two companies. There was an antitrust case against Microsoft at this time, and I was okay, what is this company is doing? So I started reading about it, about what Bill Gates is doing and how he started his company. And the internet was not a big thing at the time, and also there was no mobile applications, there was no mobiles actually. So also the exposure of technical discussion was a little bit. And I remember one time when I was in high school, yes. So my cousin, who was also a software engineer at the time, he was having a job as a teaching assistant, and
Mhm.
he was trying to like they were having the introductory course for computer science, and then he brought home the midterm exam for the students, and he was trying to give them marks. And I was spending the day with him where he was doing this examination marking. And the exam was about how do you convert this decimal number into binary. I didn't understand what is this, so he spent some time with me teaching me, okay, this is how you convert from decimal to binary. So this is one of the reason when I said, okay, this is something that I would like to be doing. But when I got into the university, it was just the ideas that I had in mind on computer science were not what actually it is.
After you studied it, you find it less interesting, or what was the difference?
Not less interesting, but not as mythical as it looked like. So, in movies, they get you one like when a hacker is trying to hack into computers and they give you. I remember there was a movie that's called Swordfish, and they were trying to transfer money from one bank to another, and the guy had like six screens and he was moving the money as if they are actual
Mhm.
components from one bank. This is not what's the reality of software is, but this is okay. At the time when I was a teenager, this looked very cool,
Yeah.
but it is not how it actually became. It's like lots of tedious work to get some very small component done. Then, when I started studying, I thought a lot of people are trying to configure the computer terminals and all of the shortcuts, and then using Emacs and using Vim and all of this stuff just to try to make your work look as fancy as it could be. When I was teenager, that also was something
Mhm.
that I liked. So I had a fancy terminal, I had a fancy computer setup, even though it wasn't giving me any advantage, but just it looks cool. So I also wanted to look cool.
And when you were studying, did you go through internships, or how you went from studying to your first job? Was it through internships and later you got your first job at the same company, or how was it?
So when I was a student, I don't think that internships were as a thing as it is right now. So the only possible way to get an internship in Egypt, at least, there was one company that is offering an internship, which was IT Workers. I couldn't get inside it. I tried, but I couldn't. And then I also had another trial at Microsoft, and also this didn't work in 2008. So I didn't have any internships when I was a student. But how
Mhm.
I get my first job, it was I graduated in 2009, and this was at the very height of the financial crisis. So there wasn't that much job announcement or job positions. So it took me some time to be able to find a job. I did like 50 interviews at first to get my first position. And the first position I got into was in a company called Asgatec. They were a partner of Nokia. So at some time in 2008, Nokia started to create mobiles that are a little bit smart, not as a smartphone as we have now, but mobile phones that you can actually have external applications installed into it.
Mm.
And then there was a company in Egypt called Azgatec. They were creating a mobile application for village. So they were creating an application for Quran and some Arabic localized application. And they were one partner of Nokia. And the applications that they were doing, creating, Nokia was reshaping them into other areas. So everyone who is buying a Nokia phone in the Middle East, they were also getting this application by design for them. So this Quran application was pre-installed on most of the
Mm.
mobiles and especially in the Gulf area. So this was the first company I worked on. It was dealing with Symbian OS. It was incredibly complicated. I didn't really understand even after I left the company. So I spent only 3 months in the company, and I really didn't understand how is the system is installed. It was quite complicated, and eventually I found a different company, and then I left.
So you decided to choose a different job because of the complication of the system, or it wasn't like people who are experienced that can onboard you, or what were the
So
challenges?
so, so actually the team was quite good. I remember so multiple people in the team were quite good. They were experienced. But for me, I was used to the normal von Neumann architecture of computer. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually understood how a computer application is being executed. But for Symbian OS, it was just a very different world for me. The mobile phone, the internal architecture was different. The way they were doing memory handling and even just constructing an object was, they have to do different stuff
Mm.
to construct an object. And like they had this two-phase constructor, which I don't think I understand even until now. And this was quite complicated for me, and it took me a very long time to actually ship the first applications that I was doing. So the very first task that I had was when you hover over an application, you need the name, like the name, for example, you have the application. If the application name is long, then the title of the application needs to move so the user can read all the title of the application. And this took me like 6 weeks to do this. It
Mm.
was a little bit complicated to understand actually what is happening, how to build the whole application. And then I actually needed an actual device to test on it. And then the same thing was not working on different devices, because not like nowadays you can get your phone and then you can upgrade to the next version of Android or iOS. This was not the case. You get your mobile phone with a Symbian OS, and that's it. You have it, this Symbian OS, for the lifetime of the phone. And this led to the same application not working on multiple ways. So I had actually to build the application for the OS. Okay, I am trying this with this mobile phone, so I have to build a package for it, and then with a cable connected to my computer, and then deploy the application to test it. And if something is failing, then I have to start again. And so I don't remember that there was an emulator. So actually, you have to try on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
and this was complicated. And then at the time when I was in the university, my graduation project was something that is related to machine learning. And then my university professor, the advisor of this project, Dr. Walid, he started a company out of the some kind of a research company. And he called me and I said, okay, I am starting this company. Would you like to join? And then there was two other friends of mine who also joined this company. So I resigned from Asgatec and then went to working as a research engineer for like it's 1.5 years. And then at the this application we were doing some medical application with machine learning. So you get trying to find cancer by using image processing and machine learning. And this was before the deep learning was a thing. So we were using multiple image processing and machine learning. So you're using k-nearest neighbor and SVM and this kind of technologies, but also you needed to do some image processing on the image before you ship it or you feed it to the models that you have for classification. So this was quite nice work. We published a couple of papers at the time, but then due to the Egyptian revolution in 2011, the funding was coming from the government. And after the revolution, all the government organizations stopped funding projects until we see how the political space will look like. So the funding for the project stopped. So I have to look for another place. And at this time, I had spent almost 2 years working only on research. So I was only doing MATLAB project. At this time, Python was not as big in machine learning. So I was only using MATLAB. So I didn't have any idea how to deploy a website or all the what you would call engineering. I didn't have know any of it. So it was hard again to keep interviewing for a new position because I knew that the company that I am working on will stop funding in a couple of months. So I kept trying to find a job, and then eventually I worked in a company called Blue Cloud. They were doing SharePoint, so they were doing normal software engineering with the Microsoft stack. So at this time it was .NET 4, yeah, I think .NET 4, which quite ancient now, and SharePoint 2007. So this is a company that I spent a couple of months at. I think 1.5 years. I learned a lot of stuff in this company, but then I got accepted at master's degree in Germany. So I said, okay, let's try this. And at the time, I was also married with my first son, Malik, was also born at this time. So I said, okay, let's go to Germany. So I traveled to Germany, and the amount of bureaucracy I had to go through just to bring my wife and kids. So it was a nightmare. And this was, I think, in 2014. So it was a nightmare to deal with all of the bureaucracy of Germany. It is still a nightmare right now, but I just don't have to deal with it. But at the time, just bringing my family to Germany, even though I am working and I can support them financially, but just the amount to get an appointment at the embassy and doing all of this, an
Paperwork.
incredible amount of papers. And then we have to provide this same papers twice, once in the embassy in Egypt, and then once more at the Ausländerbehörde in Germany. It was crazy, super inefficient, but it took us some time to do this. And then I came to Germany. I was doing my master degree and then at the same time working as a part-time software engineer. So the first company that I worked on in Germany was doing exactly the same stuff as the last company I was at
.NET.
in Egypt. So yes, so I started working with .NET 4 and SharePoint, but at this time I was doing a migration for one. There's a cosmetics company in Germany called Beiersdorf. It's a big company in the cosmetics industry. So I was outsourced to this company, and we were doing migration from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. Actually, this company had a process, and it was a big company, so it was my actually first introduction to having a process and having a dev environment, or sorry, a staging environment where we are deploying it, and then a subset of the employees are testing the system on the staging environment, and then you are moving everything to the production environment. So this was quite good learning experience, but at the same time, I was living as a two life in my career. So one life was doing application development at this company with SharePoint and this kind of work, and then in the university, I was doing just basic theoretical research on machine learning. And I remember that okay, sometimes it's harder to switch from this profile in my head to the others. Sometimes I was with my advisor and he was asking me like what, like we are doing some research. I think if I remember correctly, we were doing research for how to make a neural network translate from French to Arabic. French is because he was from France, so this is the language that he knew, and then Arabic, this is the languages that I also knew. So you said, okay, doing a French Arabic translation would actually be a good idea. And this was 2015, so still translation was not as good as it is now. So this was something new. And I remember that he was telling me like, why are you writing all of this unit testing for the model? We don't need all of this. But then because I had also the mind in the company that I work at, that everything needs to be unit tested. We need some integration testing, and so sometimes my ideas were leaking between the two companies.
Yeah.
I am trying something very fancy at work that no one like I am. I remember one time my manager at the company was thinking like, don't you think that using this bloom filter is a very fancy idea to do something? Wouldn't you just do an if statement? And of course he was right, but at this time it was harder to separate between my research profile and my software engineering profile.
It's like a switch in context isn't easy. I wonder, how did you decide to apply for a master while you were already started working as a software engineer? Did you want to be more specialized in a specific thing, or how was this?
So when I was at the research company that I was at in Egypt, so my whole idea was I will be doing research for 2 years in this company, and during the time I will trying to publish one or two articles, and then start applying for master degrees outside. So I was applying very frequently on to masters and PhD programs outside of Egypt. And then when I switched it to the company that I was on, everyone in the company was good. I was very happy about working in this company, but I just was treating it mentally as this is something temporary that I am doing until I found a master degree. Because
I
at the
see.
time I had the idea of, hey, I need to be a researcher and get a PhD. And but as you already know now, I didn't do any of this. I just stopped after my master degree. But at the time, being a researcher was something important for me. And my wife also was also encouraging me because she knew that, okay, this is the thing that you worked for a lot of time. So let's try to apply for a master degree. I applied for one program in Sweden. I was accepted, but I couldn't get enough scholarships. Going there would have been harder. So, and also in Sweden at the time, as a student, you weren't allowed to work. So
Oh.
this means that I would have to spend a whole 2 years in Sweden alone without my family, which eventually what happened in Germany, but for other reasons. And then I got accepted. I applied for the master degree in Germany, and this time it was accepted. One very good thing about this master degree, it was free. You don't have to pay any tuition, and you also can work as a part-time engineer. So this for me means that I don't have to spend that much money on the program itself, and I can work and bring my family, which was also a very important thing for me to have my family.
Yeah, you know that it's not going to be simple process. It means that it was very important, and the support of your family was very important to get where you are. I can imagine it's a challenge, because sometimes people, when they have a difficult decision to make, they give up in the process. They think it's very difficult, but it's good that you kept going.
So at the time, also it was a little bit easy because when I applied for the master degree in there, Germany, this was before my first son was also born. So it was only my wife and me, and it was easier to travel at the time. Even when our son was born, it was still easy for us to take the decision because we already have this in planning. It was a little bit easier to take this decision than it would be, for example, now to take a similar decision.
I see. And then how did you progress? You continued studying and working for the same company, or did you change to a new company?
So after some time, after the 2 years, I decided, okay, let's move to a different company. So I went to Zalando. At the time, they had an office in the city where I work in. So Zalando is a big e-commerce company in Europe. They had an office in Hamburg that were dealing with big data and big data analytics and this kind of stuff. And I had a friend from Egypt who just started at the company at Zalando, but he was in the Berlin office. So he referred me to the Hamburg office and they accepted me, which was a very big step for me because it was also switching from a different stack. So at the time I was doing work with SharePoint and .NET, which is mainly Microsoft technology. And then I moved to a very different stack to work with Python and Apache Spark, which was totally different thing. I had to learn lots of stuff. But then I switched to this company, and at the time, my son was a little bit like he got into an accident. So this stopped my master degree. For almost 2 years, I didn't do anything in my degree. And then I got an opportunity to actually found some master programs that I can finish. It wasn't the best quality, but I just needed a thesis done to finish my degree. So I said, okay, let's go through it. And I actually finished it in 6 months. I had hopes that my master thesis would be much better, but at the time, I just needed to finish to be able to switch full time. Otherwise, I will have to take my son, who was still a little bit sick, back to Egypt and then switch the environment again. So I just went through the thesis, finished it, and started working at Zalando as a full time engineer. I applied for a PhD program, and it was in computational social science. I couldn't get into it. It was in Leibniz University in the south of Germany. And I tried to get into this program. Unfortunately, I couldn't. So I thought, okay, now your only opportunity to put the work that you had with machine learning into an action is to switch to a different profile, which is machine learning engineering. So at this time, there was an opportunity in Zalando to go to a machine learning engineer in a team that is in Berlin, which means that I will need to move to another city, which at this time we said, okay, let's try it. I tried it, but I couldn't get into it. And there was also another team that is being formed in Hamburg. I also tried to get into this team. I couldn't get any of the two opportunities. I was rejected both time because they wanted someone in both teams. They wanted someone who actually not only have knowledge about machine learning, but they also wanted someone who has an prior experience work as in industry to lead a new team. And I couldn't get any of these teams. So I thought, okay, I was a little bit annoyed that I couldn't get any of these teams. So I said, okay, this means that I will not have any challenging work. So I started to look outside what other opportunities I have. And then I found a new company in Hamburg that's called MOIA. This is where both of us
We
first
met.
met.
Yeah.
Yes. So at this company, they were doing like some kind of Uber, but with buses or shuttle bus. So I thought, okay, this could be a good place to start. They are starting and there is lots of opportunity. I had a meeting with the team and they told me you can come and join the data engineering team. And then later, if there's an opportunity, you can switch team. And at the time I said, okay, this is something that I can try. There's no harm of doing it. At the least, at the worst case, I will still be a data engineer as I am now at Zalando. And MOIA was actually a good step in my career. I worked for the first 9 months, 8 months, something like this, as a data engineer, where I was building the data lake that other team can be using. This actually was a good project because until I was leaving, this project was running and other people were using the data in the team. We worked to build a data lake infrastructure where you actually have an actual APIs to get your data. So this was a really good project. And then I started in the pricing team. So the pricing team were at the time doing they have a static model where they are say just have an equation where they are calculating the price based on just the distance and the number of people who are in the ride, and then they wanted to switch to a new machine learning model.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that it was actually a very good step because I got to try lots of stuff, and this
Mm-hmm.
was very productive for me, and also I think for the team, because the team was just giving you the price for the ride, and we had two back-end engineers. They were really really good,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
they were able to they were good because they made the infrastructure very solid. I started working with them on the infrastructure, but the initial infrastructure that they had was very great. It was
Yeah.
stable, and this allowed us to build stuff on top of it. And it was routing the request based on, do we want to do an experiment? Do we want to give just the price back? And having this solid infrastructure was a very good idea for, or at least very good building point for the team, because it allowed us to experiment as much as we can while keeping the main service stable. So the consumer team and the product team were not annoyed from us, because as long as we are returning good prices and as long as our service is solid and does not fail every, so I remember in the whole years that I worked in this team, we had zero failures. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, by failure, I mean we had zero failures where the whole service was unavailable. This never happened because the infrastructure from those two back-end engineers was quite good. And this gave us an opportunity to test lots of other models. We were testing lots of models, and this also gave me an opportunity to build a proper machine learning infrastructure. So I was
Mm-hmm.
able to build some experimentation infrastructure for the data scientists to work, and build some training infrastructure for the machine learning. So for the data scientists to train models, and then I built some automated ways to deploy these models, give some automated feedback. So the time I spent in this team was some of the best time I had in my life. But then after some time, I start to automate myself out of the team. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
stuff were automated and lots of the work were done. And this also gave the data scientists in the team, they were able to have some autonomy. They can do the changes themselves. They didn't need me to do other stuff. So at this time, I thought, okay, now I had some machine learning experience. I managed to build some infrastructure. Let's try to move to another company that have something similar to this, but on a bigger scale. I moved to another company at the time was Choice Delivery Hero.
Mm-hmm.
It owns multiple food delivery services in the world. They have like 70 sub companies, and they're working in like 100 country in the world. So they big. I started for them, but I only were there for like 3 months. The company is good, but the team that I was in had lots of organizational and political problems that were not allowing us to actually work. So after
Mm-hmm.
3 months or 4 months, I said, okay, that's it. I cannot stay on this anymore, because it will take us like at least 20 years to get this team stable, and I cannot waste that more time of my career.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, a friend of mine who is working at Google, he told me, okay, but if you are not happy, just let's try to apply for Google and see what will happen. So I applied for Google. I got accepted. I didn't expect that I will get accepted actually, but I got accepted. And then I started working there, and I'm still, until now, I'm still in the same team. I am not doing anything that is related to machine learning, but I am working on monitoring. So what I am doing, I am working on building a product
Mm-hmm.
where almost every internal engineer in Google is using to monitor their services. They are trying to see how the service is doing, the requests, the failure, and they are using it if there is an outage or something. They are using this service to debug. So the service is quite high availability because everyone is depending on it. And this
Mm-hmm.
gave me another perspective of developing software, because it is very often that, for example, some team is having an issue and there is an alert, or there is a page, or there is an incident in the team, and they need our work to be available for them to work. This
Mm.
is the only way for them to debug the service is through the products that my team and my organization is providing. And this really influences lots of the decision. You want to integrate this new technology or this new service in that system. And then you get some kind of question, okay, but how would this allow the availability? And what will happen if this component would fail? And then you need to redesign the things that you are doing so that if it is failing, it's okay if this thing is failing, but it just needs to not take down the whole monitoring stack. And this is again another learning opportunity. And the people who are using the services that I am developing are actual engineers who have been in the company for a lot of time. So they actually understand what we are doing and they can look at the code and they can also see our backlog of what tickets we are prioritizing now, what tickets we are working on. And they can come to us and say, hey, we know that you are working on this and they can add pressure on us to actually work on the stuff that is important to them. It's also fair because
Mhm.
we are providing a software for them to debug their services. So if an incident is happening and some failure is happening to this team, it is fair that they are able to debug it. So this is where I am now. Lots of challenges, of course, technically, but also lots of social challenges because suddenly I went from a company, for example, last company where I actually working. It's like I don't
Mhm.
count delivery here because it was just a very small time. So the last company where I working was MOIA, and we were like everyone is one building and we are able like when something is happening we are also operating in one city, so the scale was not that high.
Mm.
And then suddenly I have a meeting with someone on Australia and which needs to be at 10 in the morning, and then I have in the same day a meeting with someone in San Francisco which has to be 8 in the evening, and then I need to review some code from this person who is in Singapore, and then I also need to review code for a person who is in San Francisco or New York, and then all of
Mm.
this time zone, and then having to see a decision taken by some a product person who is in Seattle, for example, and then having to actually it's not easy to get into a meeting with them, so we have to keep sending emails and sending chat messages, and so all of this is making work a little bit hard, different. I wouldn't say only hard, but it is also different. You need to communicate in a different way
Mm.
because my English is not my first language, but also it is not the first language of a lot of people in the company. So communication becomes very hard and very different than what I'm used to. It's not easy to get to someone and talk to them face to face because this will not scale. And then you have to actually get to terms that you are not the smartest person in the company. There's lots of people who are smarter than you,
Mm.
and they are actually looking at your work and saying, "Hey, but you should have considered this and consider that." So, for example, sometimes we have this design review where you are proposing something new that you will work on, and then you say you book a slot. There is a meeting slot where you book it, and then you get into the meeting with 50 people who are way experienced than you and this
Mm.
meeting with you, and they just don't know anything about the work that you are doing. They just read one page or two page of the design documents that I prepared, and from
Mhm.
these design documents they build a mental image of what I want to do, and then they start asking questions. And this meeting were like very scary because you have to. I remember one time there was a meeting with 30 person and all of them have question, and they were grilling me for stuff that I didn't know about because I was still new at the
Mm.
company, and they tell you, hey, but did you consider this, did you consider that, and all of the stuff that they are saying I have no idea what they are talking about because I just didn't know this. And it is fine because not everyone knows everything, but coming from smaller companies where I was an expert on this matter. This was a new thing to me because there is no way that I will be able to know everything in the huge stack that we have in my current organization at Google, but I actually have to consider them. So designing one small thing could require talking to 10 different people to see how would this affect them. So this is also a different way of communicating, a different way of designing my work, because yes, the technical aspect is still there, but it's not the most important thing. A lot of stuff are, yes, we need our service to be always reliable. I would say it is harder to work in Google than I expected it to be. Not as cool as my teenager self would have thought, with all of these screens and having to move the money from a bank account to another. But it is tedious. You need lots of communication, but it's also there's a reward of managing to get this communication. It's helping me to grow personally, to be able to shuffle all of this communication, learn how to answer to people. And I notice this in my communication when I look at, for example, an old document, and I see that, okay, I did manage to go and understand, and I'm not making this mistake anymore or that mistake. So this is also something that I like to look back and reflect, okay, this is, I used to do this mistake. I'm not doing it anymore. I am happily doing new mistakes, but I'm not doing the old mistakes, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I can imagine it's continuous learning because there is always something new, and also people are smart. There is a lot of inputs from different people. And for people who would be interested to work as a site reliability engineer, what are the skill set that they need to develop? I think it involves a lot of infrastructure and DevOps.
So in my case, I worked a lot with infrastructure. So for some of my friends who are also site reliability engineers in different team, it requires lots of communication and lots of system design. Because, for example, the team that I am in, we are owning the product. But for example, some site reliability engineers who are my friends also, or in different sister organization, they don't own the product. They are just the site reliability engineers that are making sure that the system is reliable, but they are not the actual developers. So they are creating the infrastructure, and then the development team is using this infrastructure. Some teams, of course, have lots of networking, like computer network, not social networking, but computer networking. They have to make sure that the packets and all the, like this TCP and all of this stuff is properly configured. Some of them are also managing hardware components. So the site reliability engineering stack in Google is quite diverse.
I see. At work, in your different positions, do you get that moment that, yes, this is what I want to do? Or is it not there yet? You still maybe are looking.
So with time, I actually start to get less and less knowing what I like to do, because when I was younger, I wanted to do something that is cool and have the recognition. But with time, I just think, okay, there's a lot of stuff actually that I want to do. When I was at MOIA, I was really happy working with the data engineering team, but I was also happy working with the machine learning team, so with the pricing team. The same is happening, for example, now at Google. I get the opportunity to work on different stuff because the team is big, and I think, okay, this is something that I really like to work on, and this is something that I really would like to learn. And I don't have the opportunity to work on all of this stuff at the same time. There's a lot of stuff that I say, okay, this actually. Sometimes I say, okay, this hardware team is something that I really would like to work on, even though I have no idea what they are doing, and I cannot really do on what they are expecting me to do. But it just looks like a nice thing to do. But with time, I think I learn to know my limitation and the stuff that I think they are cool, but I cannot do this. So this is something that I learn with time.
Yeah. Is there an advice you would like to share with the audience?
An advice. I am not that good with giving advice actually, but this is the advice that I keep telling to my son. You actually need to learn to do the stuff that you don't like, because this is like a lot of the time in your life, you just need to sit down and do something that you hate very much. And I struggle with this a lot myself, but it's just deciding that I am not going to do this school thing. I will actually stay at home and do the studies. This usually is something that works, but I just need to force myself. And a lot of people actually need to also learn how to force themselves to not go out with friends, for example, and stay at home and finish the works that they should be finishing. This is my advice to my kids and my advice to myself also, that you need to finish the stuff that you should finish. So this is a general advice that I would tell to anyone.
Mhm. Thank you. I think also about tolerate things that seems to be difficult because the end result would be good.
I cannot do this with German language, for example. I have been trying to learn it for like 10 years and it's just very hard for me. And I cannot get myself to sit down and study it. But
Yeah. Thanks a lot for this nice conversation, Ali, and thanks for your time.
thank you, Em, for giving this opportunity.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
I'm looking forward to our next episode with a new guest and new inspiring story. Until then, stay safe and stay tuned to our next episode. Tic Tac, tackle the inspiration.